Hey YouTube, Ryan Knight here. In advance, sorry about the wind. I can't do anything about it, and this is the only time I've had to record. I know I usually upload videos a little bit more frequently than this, but life kind of got hectic for a smidge. But want to go ahead and talk about something that I ended up getting into a discussion with one of my old coworkers, actually, from my last job, that I ended up seeing earlier today. Sorry. Got indigestion. Don't know what's going on. But, yeah, we were actually talking about, you know, us seeing our old series get gutted and, like the stuff that we grew up with. Seeing them be gutted and hoarded out, sold piecemeal, so on and so forth. And, at first what got it started was Final Fantasy VII. For those of you who aren't Final Fantasy fans or really don't care about video games or whatever, for one, what are you doing on this video? I know why you're on the video, because the thing is this doesn't exactly necessarily have to do with just video games. But, we were sitting there, we were talking about it, how, they made Final Fantasy VII an episodic release, and how it was a slap in the face to the fans who had been wanting just a basic remaster. So them go through, update the graphics, basically keep the story, but there was one big thing that they wanted as far as change was concerned. And that was, they wanted the golden saucer to be a little more filled out, because it seemed like there was going to be a lot that was going to go in there, and they just kind of like ran out of development time, or they ran out of funds, or whatever. Which is fine. It's understandable considering how long that game truly is. Anyone who played through the original Final Fantasy VII, if you ask them, how many hours did you put in? They're going to sit there and go, 1, 2, 3. They're not counting hours. They're counting game saves where the hours were capped. So, when you sit there and you think about it, it's all like, okay, understandable that they might have ran out of some development time when they put all that in there. But people just wanted the graphics to be updated, maybe have some voice acting instead of it being text-based, and have the golden saucer, maybe have some other aspects, in there. Whatever, people weren't wanting a whole hell of a lot, but they were willing to pay full retail price for a brand new release of Final Fantasy VII. Well, so the first time they're all like, all right, we're re-releasing Final Fantasy VII, and what did they do? They didn't increase the graphics. They said they increased the graphics, but what they did was upscale. I'm not going to go into the details of what an upscale is versus a graphical upgrade, but basically what it is they just said, oh, well, we have it to where it properly fits on modern day screens and doesn't look a little weird. But they said that was a graphical upgrade, which in the strictest, most technical sense, I'm talking about the type of technicality that a grade schooler will use trying to get away with punching one of their classmates in the face for no reason. Just absolute blatant stupidity. So that was the first slap to the face. Second slap to the face, well, you got episodic release and a change to the combat system. Now, that's a problem, because people love Final Fantasy VII's combat system. In fact, it's still hailed as one of the best JRPG combat and leveling systems to date. Now, I don't mind some changes, don't get me wrong, but don't sit there and remake a game that fans have been asking for over a decade for a re-release of. Just to sit there and not give them the same game, but launch a game with the same name in the title. Don't fucking do that. But anywho, I got really focused in on that, and that's not the real thing that I'm making the video about. It's more of just a little bit of a mini vent there. But, so then we got on to the latest Ghostbusters movie, or what they claim is a Ghostbusters movie. That's not Ghostbusters. I've been a fan since the original Ghostbusters, and to be perfectly honest, the reboot was done in the most absolute horrible way. Now, I can understand kind of going for a retro look to it. I can get behind that. I actually appreciate the artistic value in something like that. But the thing is it was lack of effort. This was not being purposely retro, because they didn't even try to follow similar palette coloring or anything like that. It was all fucking neon and shit. That wasn't in the original Ghostbusters, the first one, nor the second one. The only one that was really neon was Slimer. And what's the one character that they dulled down? Slimer. So, let's see now. Fucked up on the graphics. Well, movie's not all about graphics. How about that story? They accomplished jack shit fuck all nothing in the story. They caught one ghost. And yes, I went ahead and one of my buddies got me a disc that had the movie on it. Sony did not get the money. And I watched it. That's right, I went through and watched this fucking movie. So I could go ahead and see if it's really as bad as people are saying that it was. Because I didn't initially see the movie. I was all like, yeah, no. As soon as they started into the whole gender identity politics, I was all like, you know what? Fuck you. This movie's gonna be contrived tripe. And when I went ahead and I popped in that movie to go ahead and watch it, I'm all like, you know, I really hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping that that was just a knee-jerk reaction and I was wrong and I judged it wrong. And motherfucker, it doesn't matter how wrong I wish I was. Because the thing is at this point, I was wrong. Because contrived tripe would get a gold star from me in comparison to this fucking movie. This movie was absolute shit. The acting in it was piss fucking poor. The comedy fell flat every fucking moment. I even watched it with my ex. Because I figured, maybe I'm just a cynical piece of shit and, you know, I'm just not getting it. Because the comedy in it was very much so, you could tell it was aimed more towards women. Not towards men. You could definitely tell. So I had her watch it. I mean, she's one step off of feminist. Alright? I mean, like, and I'm not talking about sane feminist. I'm talking about feminazi. She sat down, she watched it, and she looked at me, and she said she wanted to hurt me for wasting her time with her watching that movie. She said that is time out of her life that she wants refunded. But then she stopped and thought about it, and she said, why did you have me watch this video? why did you watch this video? What the hell is wrong with you? And I explained why. Well, we had a good laugh about it, because the thing is she told me that out of all of the things that I could possibly get angry about in this world, that movie is one of them that she would not blame me for being absolutely induced to rage over. This is coming from my ex. If I show any negative sign of personality whatsoever, I am the worst motherfucker on the planet. And even her there, she's all like, I'm surprised this disc survived. She applauded me on my restraint. And then she broke the disc. So, just to let you know how bad this movie is, if you are one of the fortunate souls to have not watched it. But then, it doesn't even end there. The marketing was absolute shit on this movie. The thing is when you release a trailer and people are telling you, hey, there's some issues here, what you do not do is insult the fan base that is sitting there and saying, yeah, you might want to change a couple of things last minute here. Especially when you've got a 30-year-old beloved series like Ghostbusters. Some people consider the movies cult classics because, they're all like, wow, those were so bad. But then you got people that grew up with them, that absolutely love them, think that they're the funniest thing ever, think that they had great social commentary, all of that sort of shit. But the thing is this didn't even have good social commentary. What this had was a highlight of the absolute contempt that Hollywood and our society in general, at least here in the US, has for men. This is one of those movies that people will look back on quite a while from now. Well beyond the time of you or me. They'll look back on this movie and they'll say, that right there highlights all the problems that were being dealt with at that time. That's what almost led us to our destruction. And I know that seems alarmist and like I'm blowing it way out of proportion. But the thing is this movie honestly serves to teach that lesson. I mean, basically at this point, it was glorifying women that are incapable of expressing any level of intelligence without it being either sexualized or without it being in the most hateful and vindictive way. It has a very negative black stereotype embedded in it. Now, people, when they look at Winston, he's the everyman. He's the one where, he's just the average schmuck that's looking for a job and is willing to work for a paycheck that ends up getting caught up in something a lot bigger. But don't delude yourself. That was the reason why he was there. He was there for a fucking paycheck. Now, look at his counter character here. Look at his equivalent in this. Ghetto talk bullshit. Entitled, self-entitled attitude, self-important attitude. Maybe 2 brain cells away from vegetative state for intelligence. And yet that's supposed to be a positive outlook on the black community? That's what you want to highlight? No. At that point, you are highlighting the stereotype, and then they pass that off as a positive attribute. Doesn't really surprise me, given the groups that were backing this. But then, on top of that, if you disliked the movie, if you voiced that you disliked the movie, if you disliked even the trailers, you were called a sexist, a misogynist. The only reason why you have a problem with this movie is because it has 4 female leads. No, that isn't my fucking problem. My problem is that you slapped the Ghostbuster logo onto it when it had nothing to do with Ghostbusters. The only linking elements are the city, Slimer, the symbol, the name, the proton packs, and the vehicle. And the general base premise. And I'm being very, very lenient with that one. Because that barely has the general base premise there. And then you have that pile of shit, Paul Feig, sitting there and trying to blame the failure of the movie, not on himself and for his team, for their shitty way of handling this. For turning the movie into a fucking shit show. Oh no. He tries to blame the fans. He tries to blame women for not coming out and supporting the movie that was for them, when even women were sitting there and not laughing at the jokes that were meant to be targeted at them. In fact, I've met a few women that felt insulted by the movie. Felt like it was insulting their intelligence. They felt like it was portraying them in the most negative light imaginable. One of the girls, it was funny, one of the girls that I talked to about the movie, and I thought she was blowing it out of proportion, but I can kind of see where she's coming from now. She said she's watched gangbang porn that was less insulting to women. Of course, that same female did not exactly appreciate me sitting there and going, how is gangbang porn insulting to women? It's sitting there and showing that a woman can have multiple lovers at the same time and guys will jump at the fucking opportunity. It shows that pussy is valued more than penis. I mean, honestly, you don't see, like, 20 women waiting to take turns on a guy. But, whatever. At least not in porno. You know, that might be a thing in real life, but the thing is I hope you're getting what I'm saying here. But the thing is this movie was horrible from beginning to end. The story moved about 3 inches as far as any sort of story progression. Almost nothing was accomplished. You didn't even have any really good, hard laughs from point A to point B. Some people might have. Some people like stupid humor. I mean, take a look at the Scary Movie series. But the Scary Movie series wasn't making an honest attempt at something. It was sitting there and purposely spoofing it. It was purposely being stupid. And that added to the comedy. Because it was also self-aware. This movie lacked any self-awareness. So you can't even sit there and slap the irony sticker on it. They honestly thought this movie was good. On its own merit. Or at least they claim that's what they thought. I don't think so. I think they smelled the stink of monster turd on it and sat there and went, oh my God, how can we go ahead and get people to support this piece of shit even though it's a piece of shit? Oh, what's getting people all riled up? Oh yeah, gender politics. We have 4 female leads. We can just sit there and fucking play that. And it failed horribly. And so now you got people that are fucking pissed off as fuck. And only the people who are actually into the whole identity politics bullshit. So, how did their sales do? They flopped at the box office. Their home sales were good for a week, and so they started touting those good sales, and then all of a sudden the sales just dropped off out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they shut up about it. They were talking about a sequel for the movie. Sony even sat there and said, regardless, we're going to be making a sequel. And all of a sudden, a few heads rolled. Because that movie was losing them money hand over fist. And so couple heads rolled at Sony. And the new person that came in put a quick stop to that. Especially after it came out that the woman that was in charge of basically managing the movie, as well as Paul Feig, were working together to keep the original writer away from the movie. Because he saw that they were screwing up. They actively barred him from being a part of this. And now they're trying to blame the lack of profitability of the movie on the royalties that the original cast gets for even reboots. Really? That's funny, especially coming from this group that wants to tax people based off of who they are and what they are. And only for that. And then give that money to people who have nothing to do with those other people's success. Basically paying these other, making the people that are paying the extra tax pay a royalty to these other people who have nothing to do with them. Yet they're bitching about that exact same situation happening, except for one big thing. Ghostbusters would not have been Ghostbusters without that cast. That cast is what made Ghostbusters so popular, because of the chemistry of that cast, the star power of the cast, and the absolute brilliant acting talent from that cast. And I think that it's very telling that most of them wanted nothing to do with this movie. When we've seen them make cameo appearances in references to the movie, even making fun of the movie. I'm talking about the original movie here, as far as the cameo references and such. They had no problems with those, but as soon as they were asked to do cameos in this movie, the only one that did was Murray, but that's because there was something in his contract that said he needed to, and they were going to sue him if he didn't. And so how did they treat him in that movie? They treated him as an imbecile, and then threw him out of a window. They probably figured, oh, well, you know, it would be, you know, it would be just like with, in, Zombieland, is it? I believe that's the name of the movie. It's a good movie. But yeah. They're all like, oh, well, you know, they did it and no one batted an eye. But here's the thing. He wasn't forced into that part. He was asked to do the part, and he said, yeah, sure, that's awesome. He even said he had fun with the part. He loved it. That was not said about this movie. And you could tell when he was talking that he was having to talk from a scripted thing. He was not able to express his opinion about that movie. And anyone who's watched any interviews with Bill Murray and all that, he doesn't exactly have a censor unless there is a legal reason for him to have one. And he was not acting the same as he does in all of his other interviews. He was very stiff, very rigid. He wasn't relaxed. So at that point, he had the legal shotgun to his head. Just going off of basic psychology, you can tell this. So that's what makes it different. He didn't volunteer for this. He was forced into it. And then his contributions to the series were treated that way. So yeah, old fans, when they saw that happen, I can see them getting angry about that. Especially since they were oh so happy to throw in a bunch of nostalgia throughout this video. I mean, this video was dripping with nostalgia. And not in a good way. I'm talking about like movie theater popcorn that someone who is a little overzealous with the butter pump type of dripping. Like, there's more butter than popcorn. There was more nostalgia than story. There was more nostalgia than reboot with this reboot. But unfortunately, it was nostalgia done in the same way that Duke Nukem, the latest Duke Nukem, did nostalgia. You know, like with the Master Chief outfit, where he says, power armor's for pussies. And it's blatantly the Mjolnir armor. So it was done clumsily. And without any sense of tact. The movie was missing every element of what made the series the series. And it is really disappointing. to see Ghostbusters breathe its last with that. Because with this movie, not only did Sony alienate its old fan base, but it ruined a chance for an all-new fan base to rise up. Because the thing is unfortunately, the people that have been praising this video are few and far in between. And on top of that, they tend to be pretty fickle. But every time this comes up, which it comes up quite often, people can't help but point to all of the shit that Paul Feig himself started. Because if he hadn't started all that shit, the movie would have come and gone. There wouldn't have been a huge kerfluffle. People would have hated the fucking movie and then moved on. Quite frankly, I hope Paul Feig never finds another job. Not in Hollywood. Not as a director. Not as anyone with any level of authority. Because I've had to suffer through prior movies of his. I am not a fan of him. I don't think he has a single bit of artistic talent. None whatsoever. I'm not like Mundane Matt. I don't sit there and give someone credit just for being there. I don't fucking do that. I don't enjoy this motherfucker's work. I find it all very trite, all very contrived, and quite frankly, just an assault on the senses. And it makes sense why he chose the cast that he chose. Because quite frankly, there was only one actress in there that I have ever seen in a part where I've actually liked their acting. Only one. And unfortunately, this movie has now colored my opinion of even her. Quite frankly, she should sue the fuck out of him for damaging her reputation. Because that is exactly what he did. And there's going to be people that are all like, it's just a movie, get over it. It's not just a movie. That's not what pisses me off. If it was just a bad reboot movie, whatever, that's par for the course. I wouldn't even be bothered by it. What I'm bothered by is all of the other shit that went along with that movie. And what is still fucking happening as a rippling result of that movie. And the reason why that movie was so fucking horrible. See, if someone gives it an honest try, at least they gave it a try. This was a fucking cash grab. You can tell that very little effort was put into the writing, was put into even the acting. I mean, hell. Those actresses, I may not be fans of them, but they at least have some acting talent. And in here, they were such unbelievably bad actresses. Hell, the only person who did a somewhat decent job was Murray. And he was phoning it in. Well, that and the bad guy, I mean, hell, the bad guy, yeah, he was a cartoonish character, but that's how he was written. And he fucking nailed it to a fucking T. But the actresses might as well have just been sitting there repeatedly saying Bueller the whole fucking time. Because that's the feeling I got from them. There was no actual fucking energy. There was no fucking chemistry between them. Something tells me they were hating each other's guts throughout this fucking movie. And you can tell that they didn't know how they were going to play it. Are they playing this straight? Are they playing it as a parody? Are they playing it as something else? What? You can tell throughout the movie how badly the miscommunication was blocking up the works. And I can't blame them for having no idea what's going on, really. Because Paul Feig is one of those people. Some people try to sit there and say, oh, well, he's a misunderstood genius. No, he's just a fucking dumbass that got a few lucky breaks and knew the right people and sucked the right dicks. That's how he got where he is. The motherfucker has been tripping over luck after luck after luck. And you know what? The luck's going to end at some point, and then you have to fall back on your skill. This was that moment for him. He had a chance to show that he could actually have some artistic talent. And if this was him giving his all, he should have never been behind a camera to begin with.